when the infamous didn't check the weight on the scales at Outlaw happened. That was the easy out.
Well, so how that was, and I'm going to fill you in on a little backstory with all that.
It did shock a lot of people. Everybody went crazy. I went crazy. Everybody
Oh,
saw
no,
it.
absolutely. Nope. Yep, you should have. That was my fault. 1 bajillion%. I'll take 100% responsibility for it. I took 100% responsibility for it that night and the next day, and for however long people talked about it on the internet. That was 1,000,000% my fault. So we were at Outlaw Speedway. One thing that High Limit does is moves their scales after qualifying. So, qualifying, the scales were outside. After qualifying is over, we move the scales in closer to victory lane. And they still do it. Put the scales
smart,
closer.
Very smart.
Well, it is because, that
top three's going to the infield for post race. So.
Good. Yeah, good and bad. So, number one, I don't really agree with moving the scales. I don't like that. Your car weighed 1480 with the scales after qualifying at this certain position. Now you're moving the scales. You're not weighing another car until the race is over. So, the chances of that car weighing differently, depending on the surface that scales are sitting on, how level they are, if it's stone, if it's dirt, if it's grass.
That's true.
It could give you a different weight.
Right.
So anyway, the victory lane at Outlaw Speedway is not in the infield. We're on the track. Victory lane is between the catch fence and the grandstands, like on the fan side of the catch fence. Like the fans literally can reach out and touch the car. So we moved the scales to the infield, not a problem. The race goes 30 laps nonstop. The work area that night was in the middle of the backstretch outside of the racetrack. So the race is over. It's my job to get to the scales as fast as I possibly can. Obviously Brad won that night. The one thing that High Limit is very big on is getting cars to victory lane as fast as humanly possible, because, you see it at a lot of racetracks whenever the winner crosses the scales, takes a while to get to victory lane. So they get there,
right.
half the grandstands has left. Like the mood in the facility has died.
Right. So that's why I think it's good. But I hear what you're saying.
Right. So the race went 30 laps nonstop. It's over with. I'm on my four-wheeler at the entrance to the racetrack on the middle of the backstretch, and there's cars everywhere. But, because it went 30 laps nonstop, they're all around the racetrack. So
and it's very dusty. You can barely see at that place. I've raced at that racetrack. I literally came off a turn 2 in the middle of the pack, and I was following a guy, and then they disappeared. I didn't know where they went. I was like, what am I doing here? It's a very dusty racetrack.
So, well, then you're familiar with the culvert that's on the inside of the backstretch.
And I'm familiar with the 20-foot drop-off in 3 and 4. That's why I was like, okay, I'm going wide open in the 3. I don't know where the cars just went. What am I doing here? That's what I feel in the moment.
Yeah. So the checker flag's out. I'm waiting to get a spot to get to the infield. Finally it comes. I rip across the infield. When I get to the scales, the top 3 are already sitting there. We had the scales coned off, so they can't go on the scales without me being there, because I got to turn them on before I get a car on the scale. So rush. I mean, I'm in a massive rush. Turn on the scales, move the cones out of the way, pull Brad up on the scales. We pulled him too far, so we had to push him back. I grabbed my wing tool, checked the wing. I started around the car to go to the scales, and Brad's like, "Hey, how in the hell do you get to victory lane?" And I'm like, okay, whenever you pull off the scales, do a 180, go out across turn 4. When you get to the Ute tire, turn left. You'll go in between the grandstands and the catch fence. He's like, okay, let's go. Hurry up.
So your train of thought immediately switched to completing that task.
Hurry up. And what I did was, when I was standing at the cockpit, and whenever I got done with that conversation, I stepped back and told him to go. And I never went to the scales. It completely slipped my mind. And that is the honest to God 1 bajillion% truth. And whenever he got off the scales and turned and started to go up across the racetrack, my next car was on the scales, and in my mind I went, son of a bitch, I didn't weigh him. But okay, so I didn't weigh him. What can I do at this point? He's heading victory lane. I weighed the next car, which I think was Courtney. He was 120 over. I weighed Zeb, who finished 3rd. He was 140 over. So, okay. So I go to Victor Lane, tell everybody what I'm doing for tech, go start tearing down shit, go back to the trailer, get back to the trailer, and Mike comes in the trailer, and he's like, hey, man, there's a shit storm on the internet. And I'm like, why? And he's like, you didn't weigh Brad. And I'm like, I didn't. And he's like, oh, it's bad. And I'm like, okay. So I went to Brad. Well, first off, I apologized to Mike. Went to Brad, apologized to him, told him what happened. You know, he was fine. I mean,
So you
mistakes
didn't get
happen.
no ass ripping. You just
No, didn't get an ass ripping. So continued to do our deal. At the end of the night, we were all packed up, ready to leave. Mike and Brad were standing there having a conversation. I went over and interrupted them, apologized both to them again, or to them both again. And Brad's like, listen, it's not a big deal to us. We can't let it happen again. We're under too big of a microscope. People are watching every move we make. And I'm like, it will not happen again. I swear to God, it won't. Like, I apologize. I'm so sorry. And, you know, that night when I left the track, I can't remember who it was that called me. And they're like, don't get on the internet. And I'm like, okay. You know, because we were going to Utica, Rome. I think we had a 2.5, 3 hour drive. You know, don't get on the internet. I'm like, okay. And I had felt like shit about it, you know. And then the next morning, I had everybody texting me, calling me, you know, some people from the racing media had reached out to me, and I never, you know, I never once veered away from accepting full responsibility for it. I made a mistake. It was that simple. Like, the only thing that probably helped in my eyes and in everybody else's eyes was it was a 30-lap race and went nonstop. There was basically no tire wear. You know, Tyler Courtney ended that race with like 14 gallons of fuel in his tank. So the cars, there's no possible way Brad was light. You know, he was, and in all honesty, when Brad crosses the scales, even after qualifying, he's one of the heavier race cars.
Well, look how small he is, of course. I mean,
yeah.
How are you going to beat that?
Yeah. So, you know, it was, I went around that day at Utica Rome. I apologized to the race teams. Jennifer Marshall reached out to me. She wanted to know what happened. I told her, you know, everybody was very accepting of my apologies. Everybody understood. I think they appreciated my honesty. And in all honesty, whenever we left Utica Rome, it was over. Like, it was not discussed again. Not one time. Like, it was over. So that wasn't the reason I got shit canned, but I'm sure that it was probably a nail. You know, it was up till that point, I would say that I was doing my job without any mistakes. And at that point, it was a crack in the armor. And it, you know, it probably aided. I'm sure it aided to the decision. But yeah, so that's the story on the scales.